Al, the next topic we want to talk about is Epic vs Apple.
Mm.
Now, the ruling happened on September 10th. What I'll do is I'll read part of the statement from Judge Gonzales Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
The court does not find that Apple is an antitrust monopolist in the submarket for mobile gaming transactions. However, it does find that Apple's conduct in enforcing anti-steering restrictions is anti-competitive. Yeah, that's what she said
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as part of the outcome and finding. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, what this really means in the grand scheme of things is Epic will still have to pay Apple's 30% of the revenue collected from their own system.
Yes, but I think it also, if you read very carefully on the connotations, is that Apple cannot restrict it to be via just the Apple Store.
Correct.
So what the judge was actually saying was also stuff like, well, okay, you can have Epic do its microtransactions for Fortnite through its own store, but they will need to attribute something back to Apple.
Correct.
Because if they don't, then actually it doesn't make sense. So I think the judge made a very fair ruling, from what I could tell.
I think it was
on that
fair. I do. I think it. To me, it feels fair.
Yeah.
But really, I'm not sure that's what Epic really wanted. If you know what I mean. Because I think they were trying to get around the 30%
Well,
cut they're having to give Apple.
yeah, I mean, I think the judge also did make statements around the 30% being pretty high, or something around those terms. I think the judge basically thought both sides weren't really being nice either way, so
No.
they weren't doing
No.
what's good for the market. So
It does feel like status quo to me. Because ultimately, if you attribute to this whole thing of being around, the bottom line, the 30%, that hasn't really changed. Yeah?
Well, yes, only for stuff that is through the Apple Store for Fortnite. Now, there's no rule as to what the compensation would be for Epic direct for Apple's cut. So, what is that commission percentage? Don't know. If it's less, then actually in-game they could offer it as a less price in comparison to
Oh, they could.
Apple. So they could
But they'll still
squeeze
pay
it.
Apple the 30%.
I'm still not sure it's 30. I'm still not sure it's 30.
It's 30%, L.
Right now it is, yeah.
Right now it is. I mean, unless the terms and conditions are changed. But whose terms and conditions are these terms and conditions? They're literally Apple's.
They're Apple's ones, yes, but the 30% probably only applies right now until they change the rules, but only to stuff through the Apple
I
Store.
think the ruling means, and they've got until December 9th to do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It means that Apple has to allow another means of, let's say, paying or monetizing outside of the App Store. But it doesn't really say how much.
What's Apple's? Well, yeah, what's Apple? So I think it does say that Apple still gets a share. What that share is
Pretty much going to be up to Apple, right? This is what I mean.
Court case number 2.
Maybe, but if you know what I mean, that's still going to be up to Apple, right? To a greater extent, in my humble opinion. But the other thing this does also, because let's say other companies will still have to pay the 30% or whatever percent it ends up, right? And let's say you built your own system for collecting, the payment and doing, all of that sort of thing. There's going to be an operational overhead in doing that.
Yes, only on the basis that this is where it gets interesting. Is that actually there's probably a way to identify it, as long as you know which platform the user engaged from. I.e., if it was from iOS, then you know it should have been Apple's store, even though technically they didn't pay through Apple Store. And then similarly with Android or whatever the format. But they need to track the metrics, right? So like you say, they have to do something to monitor this, to work out the logging, to track these in order to come back with the numbers.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to be hugely difficult if your application runs on iOS. You know what I mean? It's just iOS. There's not a mixed there's not a mixed kind of ecosystem, if you know what I mean. I think, to be honest, it sounds clear cut. Yeah, And to really simplify it, what I'm kind of saying is that for people, or let's say Epic, if they were not going to have to pay, let's say the 30%, let's say, right? It makes it really worthwhile, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, for Epic, but then
Yeah.
obviously because they save on the commission and they'll probably
Yeah.
make more money from it.
Yeah.
But then the question becomes, well, if they don't offer an incentive to the user, the player base, then why would they buy in that versus the Apple one? So,
Yeah, it definitely is that. You know, Epic don't stand to make as much as they want.
oh yeah, for sure. No, there was no winners in that.
Yeah. And to a degree, if it was a smaller company than Epic, would some of them be saying, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
I have to set up all this infrastructure and this process. I have to support and run this thing in addition to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I still have to give Apple 30% or whatever percentage they agree. So it's kind of like, what's my gain here, if you know what I mean? I haven't really gained anything, because if I'm going to pay them the same amount I was paying them when I was not doing this, why do it? You know, this is what I said, like, is this just status quo? Basically, it does, because it doesn't feel that it's moved on.
It is until they have the agreement on the new platform, whatever that is. Yeah.
And if Apple have to change the percentage,
Correct,
because they don't have to do shit.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed.
I can't imagine Apple doing this out of the kindness of their hearts. Tim Sweeney, I absolutely agree with you. Do you know what I mean? This is the part I'm scratching my head here. Al, let me actually read some of the other statements verbatim, I think. First, I'll get to Apple's. You know, Apple kind of released a statement. And here it is. We are very pleased with the court's ruling, and we consider this a huge win for Apple. The decision validates that Apple's success is not illegal, as the judge said. As the court found, both Apple and third-party developers like Epic Games have symbiotically benefited from the ever-increasing innovation and growth in the iOS ecosystem. Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I don't think Epic actually released a statement or a comment officially, but Tim Sweeney on Twitter, today's ruling isn't a win for developers or for the consumer. Epic is fighting for fair competition among in-app payment methods and app stores for 1 billion consumers. So that really says it all for me.
Yep.
You know, I don't think Tim's that happy, if you ask me.
Well, he wanted more, right? He clearly wanted more. But
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you were to ask who won the most out of that, then Apple to an extent. But to be honest, there was no winners, but Epic lost more.
Well, Epic didn't gain as much as they wanted.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'd say.
Yeah.
And really, kind of, Apple have got until the 9th of December, I believe, kind of allow people to transact on in-game payments through other kind of systems outside of the App Store. But again, it just doesn't sound like it's going to change an awful lot.
No, it won't.
And Al, so I will say enough about farcical Epic V's, Apple, lawsuits and the like. That doesn't seem to change anything in reality. I'm glad that the taxpayer hasn't had to kind of front the bill for this. That's all I can say. And I think with that said, let's move on